Hello guys, we are the Reddit squad. If you want to join us, hit the subscribe button. Now let us begin with the Ask Reddit. What's the best way you've seen someone rebel against school rules? Kid pissed in the trash can when the substitute wouldn't let him leave to use the restroom. I'll never understand bullshit rules about not being able to use the restroom for 10 minutes or whatever the fuck arbitrary time is set. Edit. I know that some kids use it to skip class, but you shouldn't punish everyone for that. We had a French teacher who was really bad and most people barely tolerated. It happened a few times that whoever arrived first would stand outside her door as if waiting for her to show up and unlock it, and the rest of the class would just queue up behind them pretending to believe them. Meanwhile, the teacher would just be sitting inside wondering where her class was headed. To all the people asking if we went to the same school. Pretty sure we didn't. It was not in the US. Funny to hear this happened in other places too. Me and my Spanish class did this once, but the difference was we loved our teacher and just wanted to play a joke on her. We also told her that the whole class was going to skip the next day and she didn't believe us. We skipped, except for maybe 3 kids, and got ice cream instead. We showed up at the end of the period and brought her ice cream too, and she just shook her head. What a woman. She's like a second mom to all of us. I went to a Catholic grade school growing up that had a strict boys' hair length policy. It couldn't touch the collar of your shirt and I wanted long hair. So the principal came in one day to talk to the class. When she was leaving the room, she called me out for my long hair in front of my classmates. My response was to point to the cross hanging above the door and said Jesus had long hair. She didn't know what to say right away and seemed embarrassed, but then pulled me outside and yelled at me to get it cut. Don't mess with Catholic nuns. You can almost call it a Hail Mary tactic. Back in the 1980s, there was one kid in my school was hardcore into the punk scene. Had a bright blue, 6 inches high, razor thin, stand up straight mohawk. The principal gave him detention for being a distraction, etc. and his parting words that day were, "And tomorrow no more blue mohawk." The next day the kid came in with the same mohawk, only bright pink. He should have seen this one coming. Yeah, a bright pink mohawk would be pretty difficult to miss. Senior year, my school banned jackets. A friend was cold, wore his jacket at lunch, and the VP told him to take it off. Friend pulls out the student handbook and asked where it said he couldn't wear it. VP flips for a while and ends up showing him the dart or anything the administration seems disruptive. Clause. Friend rolls his eyes but takes off his coat. The next day, friend comes in with the same tweed sport coat the VP wore every day. Who the hell bans jackets? My school did once. They said it was dangerous if there ever was a fire. How the hell they came to that conclusion I know not. However, the school was really poorly built with concrete walls and next to no heating, so at some times of the year the indoor heat fell below 15 C. The Work Environment Authority recommends an indoor temperature of 20-24 C. We told our teachers to basically either let us wear jackets or fix the heating, otherwise we would report them. They let us wear them. When I was in grade 7, our last class of the day, students would always bring in snacks. Our lunch shift was way too early in the day, so by the end of the school day we'd all be feeling hungry. And we were all told by our teacher that if we didn't have enough to share we couldn't eat in the classroom. One day, almost all of us brought in enough food to share, even with the students that didn't bring anything in. We even synchronized the times that we pulled all our food out. Our teacher was clueless. She had no idea what to tell us. There wasn't any school-wide no food in classrooms rule, so she couldn't run to the principal. Finally she gave in to our malicious compliance and allowed us to share food for the rest of the period. Soviet anthem plays. I was in a Christian high school at the time. The day before winter break rolls around and I had packed a few Toblerone chocolate bars and some notes for the teachers I most appreciated, with the intention of leaving them as a Christmas gift. Before school, the principal made a public announcement that students were not to give any teachers any gifts unless we were going to give all teachers the same gift. This was obviously a bit of a problem since I couldn't exactly come back the next day with additional candy bars. So I marched into her office to address this issue. Upon entering the office, I made a show of opening a chocolate bar and breaking off exactly one piece and placing it on her desk. I told her that I was going to give her a full candy bar, but I now had to share her chocolate bar with other teachers that I didn't really care so much about anyways. That rule was quietly lifted. In my private school, boys were required to wear a collared shirt. It really wasn't enforced until one day it was. I was wearing a sweater without a collared shirt underneath and I had to go back to the dorm and change. I argued that I didn't look ratty or underdressed at all, but they said rules were rules. The next day I wore a white t-shirt with a collar, cut off from one of my older shirts, stapled to it. It looked terrible, but rules are rules. DIY builds. A guy I know ran a campaign to lift my old high school's strict policy on facial hair, which is to have none unless religiously exempt, which they gave you a card for that I and probably others called the beard badge. He refused to shave and had a banner and shirts made that said, "With a great beard comes great responsibility." Guy was wearing shoes against the uniform policy and was asked to put on shoes from lost property. He went around school barefoot all day. How does a pair of shoes end up in lost property? I'm imagining another kid at some point also walking around all day barefoot, like wonder where the f my shoes are. I was at a private school that had rules about the length of boys' hair. One guy in particular always ignored the rule and the administration would tell him to get a haircut every so often, but he never did. Eventually, when his hair got about down to his shoulders, the principal pulled him aside and told him his hair was twice the allowed length and by next week it needed to be shortened by half. Monday rolls around and he comes in with half his head shaved and the other side as long as ever. We were impressed by literal interpretation of the principal's request, but it still ended up with him getting a suspension for a week and he had to shave the other side before he could come back. He should have just combed the half over. During my senior year of high school, 2008, my school got super strict about cell phones. It got to the point that we weren't allowed to have them out during any point in the day, not even during our lunch period. They claimed that we would send each other test answers or something like that. Anyway, a friend of mine who was a year below me was tired of the rule and how rude teachers were when enforcing it. He literally looked at his phone to check the time and got it taken from him for the rest of the day. That next week he comes to lunch with two older non-functioning flip phones. He takes the first out and pretends that he's talking to someone on it. A teacher was instantly on him. They walk over and hold their hand out for him to give it up. He looks at the teacher and then proceeds to break the flip phone in half and puts it in their hand. The teacher was speechless. She just walked away without saying anything. He takes the second phone out and does the same thing again. The second teacher thought it was pretty funny. Flash forward to 2015 and I start working at the school as a student mentor. And now everyone is allowed to have their phones out pretty much at any time. How things change. My school had the same rules. We would play on our calculators in class and make it look like we were on our phones, so when the teacher came to take it away, they were rather embarrassed. They realized they fell right into our trap. Likewise, some kids would purposefully get their phones taken away only to have a friend spam call the phone that got taken away to cause even more of a distraction. The canteen stopped selling sachets of red sauce due to the mess some kids were making. My friend carried a huge bottle of red sauce in his bag for at least a month and provided illegal red sauce for the cost of 5p per squirt. Made a fortune. Is the red sauce ketchup? If not, what is it? It's not really a rebellion against the rules, but a good friend of mine had a special talent to make teachers like him despite having no respect for the actual school system. He used to study on his own to ace the tests, rarely showed up to classes he didn't like, and still got perfect report cards with high praises from all the teachers. The height of it was where he convinced his homeroom teacher to come pick him up from the beach before an important test. He eventually went on to have a great military career, but if he ever gets into politics, I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow managed to convince everyone that world domination under his rule was their idea. I think I like this guy. Sounds like the type of dude who could lead us to world peace without anybody realizing what he's doing. Or, alternatively, lead us all to world annihilation. So let's hope he uses his powers for good.